Well, howdy, everyone. It's Dedra Stevenson here for our last episode of You, Me, and ICED for the season, not the last ever, the last for the first season. And we will happily be back with you in the middle of January after all the holidays have passed, to bring you much more fantastic content. But let's kick off this last episode. And I think by now, hopefully everyone knows Mr. B, our producer and co-host, and also the author of The Art of Giving Back, and the wonderful Lene Pieters, who is a fantastic editor, writer, and mixed media artist. And there's my cousin Rodney, who is a fantastic writer himself and a 30-year veteran of the gaming industry. And little old me, who has written several books, several screenplays, and I'm looking at doing many more projects, including an animated short film. That's my newest one that I'm working on. So, yeehaw, let's hope that comes out all right. Anyway, animation is not what we're here to talk about today. What we're here to talk about is the murder mystery. The murder mystery. And first, I guess, it's always been kind of a staple, of any book reader's, literary diet, so to speak. But what kinds of murder, what I want to ask to you guys is first of all, what's your favorite murder mystery books and why? And what do you think makes a murder mystery great? And what kills it? So what do you think? Who wants to go first?
Not me.
What about you, Rod? I'm sure you've got opinions on this matter.
Yeah, I don't actually read a lot of murder mystery books. I've read some of the classics, some of the Sherlock Holmes stories. Most of my intake for murder mystery is British television shows because they do some of the best murder mystery shows around. As far as in gaming, it is a good genre in gaming. It's a very niche genre, but it's not so action packed that a gamer is going to keep their interest in it for too long. But I think that what it does attract, though, is those gamers that like puzzle solving. Because I think that's what makes a great murder mystery as you're reading it along, because you never really know where the story's going to take you. Just when you think you know what's going on, you find out you don't. That was one of the things I really liked about the Sherlock Holmes stories, and particularly the British TV shows that I watch.
Fantastic. I was a big fan of Sherlock Holmes as well. Yeah, I get that. Hey, Lene, I know you've got some opinions.
Hey, I had to quickly look it up because my brain's not very sharp today. But I used to love watching Quincy back in the day. Now, that's way back in the day. South Africa showed TV shows much later than they came out in America. So we thought they were current and trending. But Quincy was really fun and gruesome, and he had so much sass to him that I quite loved it. And then years later, Kathy Reich's series with Temperance Brennan, which turned into the Bones TV series, that was also quite fun from a purely research and scientific, manner in which they solved the crimes. Because I did read Sherlock Holmes when I was 10 or 11. Nancy Drew never had quite the punch that the Sherlock Holmes stories had, I must admit. But yeah, I love finding clues along the way and trying to guess, who done it. But it turns out that I prefer them more on television, I guess, because we've gotten quite lazy these days. We don't like to take that long to read, and the television format, it's been condensed quite significantly, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point. I forgot, I did read all of the Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew series. In fact, I own them, so I have a lot of classic books, 2 complete series. But I did love those books. No murder, but they were good mystery books.
Now we're talking. The reason I
and
said
now
that,
Mr. B.
No, the reason I said that is because I'm sitting here thinking they're not gonna really believe me when I say Scooby Doo and those darn kids that solve all these mysteries. And see, it was like a espionage or murder mystery that we appreciated as we were a kid watching Scooby Doo and the gang, And so I grew up in a time where we really look forward to Perry Mason. And Perry Mason
Oh,
gave us exactly what we needed, an eye into a courtroom, which I would have never seen as a kid, as you see right now, black and white with Rodney. And you have this charismatic look that right now on the screen with the black and white. I think I told you, Dedra, before about your looks as you did your reels and your TikTok.
thank you.
Cinematography makes a difference, and it makes a world of difference. And whether it was Scooby-Doo, Agatha Christie, as you said, or Perry Mason, it gave us the feeling that it was so real, and we were right there, totally involved with what was going on as far as it. So from there, the biggest fan I have is Columbo afterwards. And looking at the program and going through what happened and how he analyzed the most minute detail, although he wanted to look like a bumbling buffoon kind of guy, he would solve every crime based on the person giving themselves away or finding the most inconspicuous detail, saying, look, well, why is that? Why did that? And how is that? Because that's a murder mystery he's going to solve. And the reason I didn't go at first, because I was like, oh my gosh, my things, I'm thinking so, like it's so minute. I did, but I really believe the beginning of it from us kids was Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo, I think we all kind of grew up on Scooby-Doo episodes, didn't we? Those pesky kids, those meddling kids.
And
they
would solve the crime.
Someone else who also was made quite an impression was Angela Lansbury with Murder, She Wrote.
Good example.
As a writer solving murders while writing her murder mystery books, we were glued to the television whenever that show came on. It was really well written.
Well, so I mean, what I'm hearing though is that you guys aren't really so into the most contemporary murder mystery novels. But what about, say, for example, Girl on the Train? Did any of you guys read that one?
No,
I actually read that one.
Much.
I mean, I like you, I'm not the greatest fan of them, and I don't know why, because I just got through basically writing one in the Buchanan Bastard. But the Buchanan Bastard is going to be different, you guys, because it starts off as a whodunit, but it becomes a thriller. So, and I think that might just give it the edge that other whodunit kind of books really don't have, and that action-packed, kind of feeling, like you said, Lene, that they're lacking, in books. But what about Girl on the Train? I think it really did take patience, to get through it. And I think it was the compelling protagonist, that made me get through that book. And I just really wanted to see what happened, to, oh God, I forgot the name of the character now. I know that everybody was worried about who killed Megan. They made a movie out of it. I don't know if you caught the film, The Girl on the Train. It was quite good as well. And then there's Where the Crawdads Sing. That's another one that's been recently put into film. That also was quite a good book, I thought, but it's come under criticism because the big reveal at the end, they say, kind of undoes all of the goodness, that they kind of project on the protagonist all through the book, and then we find out, okay, spoilers here, guys. Sorry if you don't want to hear what happened in Where the Crawdads Sing. Plug your ears, okay? Or forward over these next couple of minutes. No, I know what happened. Well, when we find out that she actually did it, and she was this mastermind, that put together the whole thing, it kind of undoes her goodness. Any thoughts on that? You read it. I know you did, Rod.
I started it, but I didn't finish.
Oh crap, I really did ruin it for you now. I'm sorry, dude.
Not really. I've got the audiobook too, so I was about ready to break it out.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I did get through that one in audiobook. I mean, for those books that you don't really have the patience to sit down and read traditionally, audiobooks do make a very good alternative because you can just sort of let it play, you know. Do you do audiobooks much, Mr. B?
I do not. Again, I don't always have that luxury of time. But one of the questions you asked earlier was some of the whys. And when we're looking at a murder mystery, I think all of us will take something different out of it. And some of our listeners may take something out of it because some of us are on the inside looking out kind of people. Some of us are on the outside looking in. And for me, growing up, not having the background of the Americas, you grew up in an island, and I was learning so much. And so I was on the outside looking in on Scooby-Doo and the gang and picking up on the ideas. Um, Later on I think in my deep in marriage, we got into Father Brown, and
Father Brown, not familiar with that
another
one.
one
Yeah,
of those English shows.
it's
Again.
British. Yeah.
And Murder She Wrote, as was already mentioned, was very fantastic for us. But it was just one, again, starting off with Ironside, starting off with Perry Mason and all those guys. These are things that molded our lives. And the why is because we're remembering what we went through during courses of our life. Like if a song came on, you remember where you were during that time. So if somebody mentioned a movie, like who remembers Kojak and Ironside and all those guys, but it puts us in a time frame of where we were in our lives. And that's the why that motivates a murder mystery. Like when you brought up this title long ago, before we were starting episode 1 of your show, I already saw the Who Killed JR title under the murder mystery. And I'm like, I can't relate to it because I'm from another part of the world in another frame of time. So it didn't relate very well,
Right.
But with
That was a very American thing in the 80s.
and come to find out, my wife is born in Vietnam, and it was so interrelated with the war, and somehow all the mystery around the Cuban Missile Crisis and all that kind of stuff. That became a mystery that I had to kind of grasp because I'm not from that era per se, or in the islands. Even we were born at the same time, our brains are Dada. We wouldn't know what was going on or how it related to all the politics of it. I didn't pay attention to politics for a long time. But the point here is the why starts building over time, and I can only look back and say why I can speak about it is because I was emptying, what is it, a latchkey kid watching Scooby-Doo, and it made me feel good to see what was going on until I became an adult to watch Perry Mason, because you'll end up start remembering the theme songs over the years of each of the shows. And then by the time you get to what was the Bates guy? What was the name of the one with the knife behind the shower curtain on the Norman Bates? What is that movie called?
Oh, that's
Psycho, I
Psycho.
believe.
Psycho. And then
Yeah.
that's another murder mystery of whodunit kind of thing. And so we enjoy a very good whodunit movie and show in our home.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, you're right.
There
Psycho.
is.
Oh, go
I was
ahead.
just going to add, there is one thing that I think I can identify what kind of sets me off from actually reading murder mysteries, and it usually involves when there's like police procedurals and things like that are just totally wrong. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine when writers don't actually research procedures. Having a little bit of a law enforcement background, I was exposed to it long enough to know that you don't do certain things when you're building a case or trying to build an indictment, and that's why I think the British shows kind of are more interesting to me, because they get it right. Even though I didn't know anything about British police and court procedurals, I'm pretty adept at it now, and I can explain it to most people. Whereas, when I start watching like a Law and Order or something on TV, and I try to read a murder mystery about, there are several independent writers that send me their books, and as I'm reading through them, I said, that's wrong. a competent detective would not do that. You know, competent patrolman showing up to a crime scene would not do that. You know, it's just, you know, when they try to write it, they try to write it as a television show and not necessarily as a book, where they're setting the scene, establishing, you know, the visuals, so that, you know, your mind's eye is actually looking for the clues along with the characters as you're reading them.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of immersion that I kind of look for in books. And it doesn't take long for a murder mystery police procedural book to make me just stop reading it and say, that's stupid.
Mhm. I think Lene would agree with you there.
Yeah. Well, as an ex-paralegal, I've seen the system from the inside out as well. My late father was a policeman in the 1960s before he went into corporate world. So working with lawyers and having friends who are scientists and researchers, a lot of the plausibility of certain things, like you cannot get a DNA test in 20 minutes. And it's little things like that I think I've seen and read and heard most of it by now. So a normal murder mystery for me is just another police case. It's literally a file that would cross my desk. And as someone who's worked in that field for quite a long time, it doesn't entertain me. It causes anxiety. And for me, it's not the escape that I'm looking for. Plus, when you were speaking about Girl on a Train, my mind immediately went to Murder on the Orient Express. Agatha Christie did it the best. And unless someone does a modern sci-fi twist, I don't want to watch another Murder on a Train because it's been done. So in that sense, I guess the classics being reworked now with modern actors for a new generation to enjoy is a good thing, because they hopefully update it with the right technology, plausibility for our era with mobile phones, better police procedures, as Rodney said, and that kind of thing, and introduce them to the joy of see if you could spot all the clues, which is great fun sometimes. But for me personally, just chuck a monster or two in, like when you say Scooby-Doo. Supernatural is one of my favorite series because they had like a murder mystery every week, but it was monster related. So it was much more fun. You really never knew what was going to come next. So in that sense, yeah.
Those pesky kids.
They even did a crossover
Absolutely.
with Supernatural and Scooby-Doo. It was hilarious. If you can find that
I
episode,
loved
you will
that
enjoy
episode.
it. Yes.
I watched
Zoinks.
Supernatural too. Huge fan here. All 15 seasons. I just binged
Yeah.
through them like crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Wonderful take on folklore as well, which actually I'm toying with the idea of having one of our episodes be completely about folklore and literature next season. So let's put that on, but let's put a pin in that for next season. That'll be a good one, right? Yeah, we can bring up Supernatural again. So
That'll be a
what
whole
I'm
fun
hearing
episode.
too is that you guys, I mean, if you have a background that involved maybe a lot of, police work or legal work, or maybe even situations that were a little too close, to real life, that those kind of books were not, like you said, Lene, the escape that you needed, to get away from regular life. And I agree with you there. I think that reading and with the things we watch in films and television too, or we need it to be different enough, from real life, to get us away, from what we experience normally, right? Hopefully, the Buchanan Bastard does that. It's getting you into New Orleans, Mardi Gras kind of situation so that you can, enjoy the magic of that, the dark underbelly of New Orleans, and a little touch of mob inner workings and that sort of thing. So hopefully people like it and they can get far enough away from their real life to enjoy it.
Yeah, I think you probably had some pretty good guidance there at the beginning, when I read some scenes, and
Yes,
told
you
you
did.
everything that was wrong with it.
You did catch a lot of good stuff, and I do appreciate it. And that's a good tip for a writer as well. Have people who will check you. I mean, when you write something that's not plausible, something that's not going to fly, it's very important you have a team on your side, your people who you trust to read your manuscript and to say, that's not going to work. Nobody's going to believe that. Go back and rewrite this part. It's a very valuable thing to have. So we don't do these things alone, writers, right? We're never alone. We have wonderful colleagues to help us get through these things. And two of them you're looking at right here on the screen with me. So I want to acknowledge that.
And some thought-provoking ideas just came into my mind where we say art imitates life, or life imitates art, right? Whether it's a gaming art or a book or a movie screen made. What do you guys think about art imitating life or life imitating art when it comes to murder mysteries?
I mean, it's I think that we had a discussion on screen for a few minutes before we went on the air now about that sometimes I guess it depends on whether or not a writer is willing to kind of reach inside themselves and pour that out on paper and or on your computer screen. It's sometimes painful to reach that deeply, to have real life art imitate life. But I can tell you this, that it's sometimes the most beautiful kind of reading that we can have available. So when an artist has truly put part of their their personal experience in the book, you can just tell. I mean, it's like tears come through the words or something. I don't know how to describe it, but you can feel the soul in what they write.
And one of the
That's
reasons,
my opinion.
and one of the reasons I mention it because I take from murder mysteries and other police investigatory type writings, readings, or screen, I take my real life and always think about forensics. And I say
Right.
to myself, I want that camera at the stop sign to catch me or to film me so that I have the time stamp and the forensics. And then,
So nobody
and then
can blame you for
right,
for
and at
anything,
home
right?
I have every time I open my door, my alarm goes off. We have basically a full printout of every door I open that gives me today's forensics. And says the time says I did this, I did that. My garage opened at this time. It comes over my phone and tells me your garage door just opened and all kind of things like that. And boy, how helpful it is to have the imitation of life. You have the detailed forensics of where you were, what you did, who caught you in the grocery store, did your ATM card bought those groceries, did the traffic light see you, and so
Take
on.
your picture when you were
Right.
withdrawing money.
And at the
Yes,
same time, we
exactly.
know from a murder mystery that helps solve whether you did it or didn't do it.
True
Yeah.
that.
From
True
a who did
that.
it.
Yeah, and the whole thing about life imitating art. I mean, there's a lot of occasions like when I'll walk into like a strange building and something doesn't feel right and I don't really know what it is. I'll put my hands in my pocket so I don't touch anything. It's just, it's just sort of a
Exactly.
innate behavior, and I still do it. And I've actually been called out for it before. I was doing some paranormal investigations with some people, and they said, why are you walking around with your hands in your pocket? I said, because I'm not going to touch anything.
Exactly. And on the sense of who
Leave
shot
no
JR,
fingerprints.
on who shot JR, I randomly stop and bend down and tie my shoelace on purpose because I just feel that might be the time I'll be missed. The bullet will miss me because I squatted down and tied my shoelace. But yes, we have these habits we get from us reading these novels, from us watching these programs, or even being involved in writing, because it creates our own habits. And so all of these add to what and add to why. And the logical reasoning Columbo uses, the logical reason Perry Mason uses, or blaming the kids for those pesky kids in Scooby-Doo, it formed part of our lives. you know, at,
Yeah.
at
Yes,
this
it
age.
has. And it just goes to, I mean, whatever we've read, what we watched, what we have been surrounded by was all sort of food for building who we are, our personalities, right? So yeah, that does make a lot of sense. And it influences our behavior today. You know, I feel like I must clarify the who shot JR thing before we close this episode, just so everybody knows, right? Dallas was a popular television show in the 1980s, and it was about oil tycoon family, J.R. Ewing and the Ewing family oil.
You
Okay.
remember that, yeah?
And at some point, you know, J.R. was played by Larry Hagman, and he you know, got shot by someone at one point in the season, and everybody had grown to hate him so much, but he was like the villain you love to hate. You know, I mean, you kind of like him because of his swag, you know, in a way, but you sort of hated him too because he was a total douche, you know. I mean, but you know, and it was sort of a thing, you know, at that end of that season, he got shot, and everybody was trying to guess, you know, who shot him. You know, it was a really big thing when I was in high school. So there you go. Who shot
If I
JR? There were
recall,
buttons,
if I
there were
recall correctly, it
t-shirts.
was. Can we say who it was? I mean, it's not a spoiler
Yeah,
now.
I
I think it was
so long
Lucy, wasn't
gone.
it?
Right, the sister of his wife,
The little
his wife's
kid's
sister.
sister. Yeah, yeah.
The kid's sister. Yeah, she's the one who shot him. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
so
was.
She
I
was
mean,
my
not a lot
favorite
of people got
character.
that right. So it was a really well covered conspiracy.
yeah, so now it kind of makes sense of what Mr. B was just talking about, since he does work in the energy sector. Of you know, it kind of hits close to home. I can see that. So I see why you like to tie your shoes so much.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, I have really, really enjoyed this episode, you guys. I guess we're right just about at the end of our time now, but I wanted to say, you know, thank you for being around with me during this whole season. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure all of the viewers of, you know, on YouTube, on all of our listeners, on all the podcast profiles that Mr. B has got our podcast on. I'm sure they have enjoyed listening to us in the car and various locations in the kitchen, making breakfast, whatever. But we really appreciate you being around too, the people who listen to us and who watch us. Thank you very much. And don't forget that we are coming back, and we're coming back bigger and better, stronger, and even more interesting. Middle of January, and we want to say happy holidays in the meantime.
See you guys in the new year.
Any final words to everybody, you guys?
See you guys soon. It was a great season. Thank you very much for
It
it.
was great. And happy Christmas, happy Hanukkah, happy whatever it is you celebrate.
And
Have a good
Happy New
one.
Year.
And happy New Year too.
Right.
Yeah. Take care.
See you
Bye.
then.